Well, this is Mert Witness 1, William K. Murtaugh, and today I guess we're going to talk about the law. Now, I'm not quite sure what Kurt Pendergrass was driving at in this 2-hour-long weirdness that I had to suffer through to try and get an explanation as to how Kim Picazio kept Field McConnell from going to his precious rally on October 10th. Not one word was said about that. All they got into was apparently Kim had said something about killing Tim Holmseth, which I honestly wouldn't blame her if she did. But, number one, the recording was crappy. I could barely understand what was being said. Pendergrass was being disrespectful. He wouldn't let her get in 2 words. He just kept talking over the top of her, just like dominant men do to women. But this is the thing I got out of most of this. Kurt Pendergrass seems to think that it's perfectly okay for a man living 1,200 miles away in a remote town can constantly harass, threaten, intimidate, and blackmail a woman in Florida. There's nothing there that says you can't do that. You know, you can call this woman up, say, if you don't answer my questions, I'm going to lie about you. I'm going to report you to the cops for things that you didn't do and didn't say. You know, I'm free to do whatever I damn well please because I'm a sovereign citizen. He didn't use those exact words, but apparently that's what sovereign citizens are. They want to operate with absolutely no rules at all. Now, Kurt mentions the Constitution. All right, there's a provision in the Constitution that says you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Tim Holmseth is interfering with that because Kim can't live the provision of that Constitution because Tim Holmseth won't leave her alone. He won't leave a lot of people alone. Tim Holmseth makes accusations without proof. Yeah, he's got tapes of some guy saying this, that, or the other thing, but that's all he has. He has a he said, she said. Somebody signs a notarized document. The person did not go to court, did not swear this in front of a federal agent, law enforcement. So Tim Holmseth didn't follow the Constitution. You know, if we're going to argue about the Constitution, you know, let's look up the Constitution and what it says about the creation of laws and so on. And there are laws that were created and rules that were created under the Constitution and the Federalist Papers that Tim Holmseth violated. Now, Mr. Pendergrass is an expert. He should be able to recognize that. So again, we go back to Mr. Pendergrass. And Mr. Pendergrass has a question to answer. Is Mr. Pendergrass saying it is all right for someone to torment, falsely accuse, and basically ruin the life of somebody without cause, without proof? Mr. Pendergrass seems to want his own separate government to make up the laws and determine who's guilty, because apparently not guilty doesn't enter into the picture. They're just going to date, okay, you're guilty, and you're going to go, and you're going to get executed, or you're going to get this, that, or the other thing, because you went through all this process of following the laws of both the United States of America and the state of Florida and the state of Minnesota and the state of this and the state of that, because, you know, there is such a thing as states' rights, but apparently that is a provision of the Constitution Mr. Pendergrass forgot to read. Now, Mr. Pendergrass also states that he's going to do all this elimination of the entire bar association, both in the United States and the individual states. And how exactly is he going to do that? Or is Congress going to give him the power to do it? Are they going to say, okay, Mr. Pendergrass, you got this power? Or is he going to seize it? Is he going to overthrow what he calls the deep state, which would apparently be 2/3 of the United States government, in order to change the rules? Are we going to have an armed insurrection? How has all this changed? We have a guy in an office somewhere in Idaho that seems to think that he's got the power to change the entire United States. Now, how are you going to do that? Precisely, in detail. How are you going to do it? That's what I want to know. You declare that your way is the right way, and everybody else that disagrees with you, all 365 million of us, are insane. I think Mr. Pendergrass needs to look in the mirror, because he's the one that's insane. Now, the one thing that all these people have in common, be it Field McConnell, Mr. Pendergrass, his partner down there in Ocala, Florida, Tim Holmseth, and a few others, is that they've been on the losing side of the legal system. They've gone to court and they have lost. Each and every single time they have lost. I have not seen evidence of one thing that any of these people won. Not one. And yet they can go out there and they can say, oh, they know it all. We read the Constitution. We read a lot of books. We know it all. Half of the United States, or 2/3 of the United States, is wrong. And we're going to change that. Now, we are what is known as a representative republic. Remember that. We are not a pure democracy in as much as people would like to say we are. We elect representatives to go to Washington, D.C., or our respective state legislators to represent us. Key word, represent. We give, as people, through our votes, and through electors, in the case of the president, the power to govern, to make laws, do everything we're all supposed to do under the laws that we make, under the provisions of the Constitution. Some guy sitting in Idaho just can't say, well, I don't like that law, I'm going to make up my own. It has to go through a process. Kirk Pendergrass would have to go to his congressperson in that state, be it a senator or a House member, and he would have to convince that individual that this is the wrong way to do things, and we need to change that. And then that representative would go to Washington and argue his case through the committees and everything else that goes on in Washington. And finally, it would come to the floor for a vote, and a law would be made, legislation would take place, and whatever Mr. Pendergrass wanted would be put into law. Not everything can be done by executive order. Congress doesn't like it because this gets into the president being a king. Now, this seems to be what Pendergrass and McConnell and Holmseth and others want. They want Donald J. Trump to be king. To say, I'm the one that's going to determine everybody's lives. I'm the monarch. This is what the United States ran away from in the 1700s. They didn't like the idea of having a king running their government, so they revolted. They came up with the Declaration of Independence, and then Articles of Confederation, or all the different things we study in civics and government that form our current United States. So, Mr. Pendergrass can argue the law all day long, but Mr. Pendergrass is yet to explain to the rest of us who seem to be insane how he is going to enforce the law. Who is going to enforce the law? Is Donald J. Trump suddenly going to take the United States Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, all these people, and say, okay, no more bar association. We're going to turn the court system upside down. You're not going to be able to give out traffic tickets. You're not going to be able to register cars. You're not going to be able to do any of this because none of it's in the Constitution. So are we going to have an armed civil war? Mr. Pendergrass, it would be very, very nice if you would explain how you are going to accomplish all this. Is E-Clause some kind of superpower that they can go out and, with the snap of their fingers, everything just changes overnight? And all these people that you say are traitors to the United States government, you're going to round them up and you're going to execute them. Who's going to try these people? Are you just going to get up there and say, point the person, say, well, you're guilty, you're guilty, you're guilty. No chance for defense, no chance to cite precedent, case law, any of that. You're just going to say, you're guilty, no trial necessary, I'm the arbiter of justice, firing squad, life in prison, this, that, and the other thing. You know, it's either you give up the bar, give up being a lawyer, or else. You're a traitor to the country and you're going to die. Because if you're a traitor to the country, the punishment is execution, pure and simple. And that's what he's implying. That's what Field McConnell's implying. This is what Tim Holmseth is applying. Because Tim Holmseth is on the board of directors of a company or a corporation or whatever the hell it is, a group that wants to execute a member of the Florida Bar Association because he's a traitor. Mr. Holmseth, by himself, decided that a lawyer from Florida is guilty without a trial. There's been no trial. There's been no arrest. There's been no grand jury. There's been nothing. He just gets up there and says, oh, she's guilty. I'm this Nobel Prize winning reporter. I say she's guilty. I don't care what you say. I don't care what evidence you provide. She is guilty, 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 guilty. It's murder, death, kill. Killer. Executor. Traitor. That's what these people are saying. Kirk Pendergrass, he gets out there and shows a video where he says that she wants to kill Tim. But what about all the times that Field McConnell and all these people in his chat room and Tim Holmseth has implied that Kim should die because of charges that a man in Minnesota who has never met the woman, has not gone personally to Florida to investigate for himself the facts. That all this man has done is in a little corner of his studio apartment has sat there and just decided on his own that she's guilty. Based on what? A woman on pills, sent her heavy medication. That was one accuser. She has since retracted her accusations. A bounty hunter who has had a rather colorful past. And a couple of other people thrown in. Based solely on their statements. Solely. Not one piece of physical evidence that Tim Holmseth can connect to anyone has been brought forward. Nothing. And yet Tim Holmseth has this movement all over the country. He's got this idiot in Wisconsin that got on board. And Mr. McConnell, where's the evidence, Mr. McConnell? Where's exhibits 1, 2, 3, and 4? The correspondence with her name on it. Where are all the evidence? There isn't any. All there is you getting up there, calling this woman all kinds of names, making these accusations with absolutely, positively no proof. And Mr. McConnell is another one of these people that has problems with the law. Mr. McConnell can't seem to pay his bills. Now, Mr. McConnell was a Marine. And so is the lady that does the prayer ceremonies. And Mr. McConnell swore an oath. And apparently, he doesn't understand what the oath is because he violates it every time he turns around. You know, we have a thing in this country called due process. Now, Mr. Pendergrass claims to be an expert in the law. So he should understand what due process is. And due process simply means that if you're accused of something, you have the right to go to court. And the state has the obligation to prove guilt. You don't have the obligation to prove innocence. You can defend yourself, but it is up to the state to prove guilt. And so if Mr. Pendergrass wants to follow the Constitution of the United States, he might want to read up what happens when you're accused of something. And what happens is when you're accused of someone, you go through a process, a constitutional process in which you are shown the accusations against you, and the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you're guilty. Pendergrass has not done that. McConnell has not done that. Holmseth has not done that. So I would suggest to these individuals that if they want to start accusing people of things, they start proving it. And not just with recordings of somebody saying that in a fit of anger, they want to kill somebody. And then turn around and say, well, I'm going to meet somebody at the front door of my house with my gun, and if they don't have a warrant, I'm going to shoot them. You know, what do guns do? They kill. The ultimate punishment from a gun is to get killed. So, Field McConnell made a death threat. You know, I would hate to be some poor child knocking on his door to sell Girl Scout cookies because he'd shoot her because she don't have a warrant. You know, that's as ridiculous as that metaphor is. That's what we're talking about here. If somebody were to knock on Mr. McConnell's door, and Mr. McConnell was in such a paranoid state, the poor guy or girl would get shot. You know, somebody breaks down with a car by said coincidence, and they need help. Field McConnell, Kirk Pendergrass, Timothy Holmseth. I would like the three of you to explain how you are going to try people that you say are guilty. What physical evidence are you going to provide? Are you going to bring the people that made these recordings and made some of these printed materials that you showed into court to cite how they came to the conclusions they did? You've had 11 years to do this, Mr. Holmseth, since you're the one that brought Kim into this little circus that you're a member of now, this organization and this little lawsuit you tried to file and lost, by the way. So explain yourself. Specific information, specific exhibits, specific testimony, where somebody has put their right hand down on a Bible and swore to God to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Explain in detail about how all these people, from a drugged up girl in a mobile home in Northeast Florida, right on up to the Vice President of the United States, and everybody in between, are all involved in this elaborate enterprise. Facts, evidence, exhibits. I want to see all of it. I want to see the basis for all your accusations, the basis for this book, which is, there's no evidence in there. There's accusations, a couple tape recordings, maybe somebody wrote a letter and went over to their bank and got a notary. Anyway, I can make a notarized statement tomorrow. It's not enforceable in court. You know, you can't take a notarized statement saying I saw somebody kill somebody to a court of law and get that person prosecuted, because they're going to bring me in and they're going to put me under oath in court, and I'd have to repeat what I say. If I went into a court of law after I signed a notarized statement, I said, I lied. You know, this kook from Minnesota wanted me to say this stuff, so I said it. You know, this is the reason why. and they throw it out. Say it's not it's inadmissible. So there goes your proof. You got to have procedural proof. You know, the constitutionally mandated process for proving guilt. It's all right there. All you got to do is read it. Apparently Tim Holstead didn't read it, and Kirk Pendergrass apparently didn't bother to tell him where to go and read it. Constitution delegates authority. Remember that, Mr. Pendergrass. The Constitution delegates authority. Where do you think the Electoral College came from? It's a delegation of authority. We are a representative republic. We are not a pure democracy. Representative. Very important word. Look it up. Understand how this country was founded, the rules and procedures that were put into place by our founders in the Constitution. Everything's right there. And the one thing it says in the Constitution is that there will be representatives. These representatives will go to Congress on behalf of all of us. If we don't like what the representative is doing, we vote that person out. We go to our state elections, and we say, we don't like this guy anymore. We're going to put up this other guy. Let him do the work. We just don't go in and say, we're going to throw the process out the window. We're going to elect people to do what we want. That's how you do it. Just getting up here and talking about being sovereign citizens and all that, that's saying you want to overthrow our form of government. You want to go in there and by force with armed militias and take over the government. That is what you're arguing, Mr. Pendergrass, because I see no other way. The President of the United States just can't arbitrarily say, I don't like the way Congresses do things. I'm going to call up the Army, Navy, Marines, and some special operation. We're just going to take the whole damn thing over. That's a coup. That's treason. They tried to do that in the South. They came up with the Articles of Confederation. They tried to break away from the country, and that didn't work out so well. They tried to stage a coup. So, you can go ahead and argue all the nonsense you want to your brainwashed minions out there and with all this crap. Because you sure as hell don't know your ass from the hole in the ground. A high school kid could out-argue you. I mean, you got a nice radio commentator voice, and you can articulate words, and you can say things in certain patterns, but that doesn't make you right. Makes you stupid. Now, I don't agree with everything that lawyers say and do. I've had pretty good arguments with Kim. But at the same time, I understand that she was granted constitutionally the powers of being an attorney. And as long as she operates within the laws of the state of Florida and the United States, as well as the procedures that have been put in place through legislation by the state and federal governments, that she can practice law. And all a lawyer is someone that goes before a court and argues on behalf of the client. Lawyer gets up there, they're either a defense lawyer, or in case of Kim, she's a family law attorney. There's a dispute involving the child. Any number of reasons, she gets up there and she argues on the behalf of her client. Regardless of what, either as a person having a custody dispute about the child or some other reason, that's what she's there for. That's what she's an expert in. And since Mr. Pendergrass is one of these people that will never, ever admit that he's wrong, there's no explaining to him how the Florida court system works. Mr. Pendergrass doesn't work here. He just came to the state. He just got this stupid license for some weird thing and is out there and basically arguing things that make absolutely no sense. He's completely misinterpreting how this country was founded and how it runs. You know, people want to listen to him. They want to say, oh, he's right. He's the greatest thing since spilt milk. Be my guest. You do so at your peril, because when you go to court, it ain't going to be Kurt Pendergrass sitting next to you in court. It's either going to be someone that's licensed by the State Bar Association where your case is being held, or it's going to be you representing yourself as a lawyer. And you're the one that's going to have to live with whatever advice you take or don't take from Mr. Pendergrass. Because so far, everybody that's taken advice, Mr. Pendergrass has either lost their case, or they're sitting in a basement somewhere in a lounge chair watching a 60-inch TV and playing around on a computer. That's where we're at. Yeah, I don't care what Mr. Pendergrass does. If he wants to make a fool out of himself and fool out of the people that he talks to on his radio show or his webcast or what have you, that's perfectly fine. Because until you have the power and the ability to do what you want to do, these are the rules you got to go by. The lawyers that you see in court every day have that power. You personally found that one out twice. Even as low as a parking ticket or having a ticket for no registration. You took that as far as it could go, and guess what? You lost. You lost big. You had to pay the fine anyway. Probably had points on your driver's license because you're driving. You're driving on with no insurance or whatever it was, and suspended license. And you tried to make some dumbass argument about the cop not seeing you in the truck when he had a high-resolution video equipment that identified you. And they cited case law where the guy came in, he didn't even have the technology, and he still won the case. So you lost in a constitutionally recognized court with people that had the constitutional authority to prosecute your case, and you lost. But you can't. You come up with all this crap because you lost. One time you got your ass arrested. Same thing. You lost. Same thing happened with your partner down there in Florida. He didn't follow the rules set down by the state court. Same state that gave you the license for this E-clause thing. You lost. Your partner lost. They said no. You gotta pay your child support. You don't pay your child support, go to jail. All you people out there, you want to listen to Mr. Pendergrass and Mr. McConnell and Mr. Holmseth, knock yourselves out. Send your money, because that's what they're there for. And the bottom line is, this is all about money. How do you think Mr. Pendergrass pays for his office out there? That's his nice, sweet business office. Somebody's paying him for all this stuff. He's just not out there yanking out his wallet out of his back pocket and using his own money. The money's coming from somewhere. Maybe it's a hobby from fixing his car. You know, he's a mechanic. So he goes out and he fixes cars. Maybe that's how he's paying for all this. I don't know. But money's coming from somewhere. I don't care. You're free to make all the money you want. And if people are stupid enough to pay for services from this guy, go at it. Because you know what? That little piece of paper he filed in Florida didn't do a damn thing. Warrant is still out there. You can call up. Just like Mr. Pendergrass said that you can call up and you can check and see how valid this little business license of his is in the state of Florida. And boy, I could go into a lot there. because there is a question I'd like to ask Mr. Pendergast. But anyway, this is William K. Murtaugh, Witness 1. Have a good one. So, this is William K. Murtaugh, Witness 1. Have a good one.